So we'll start, like you said, with Baker Mayfield, right? Gets picked up by the Rams. I mean, I don't. I'm not gonna sit here and fault Baker. Right? I get it 100% on his end, right? Work is work. You found somebody to pay your 1.35 million, right?
Yeah.
Like you found work. You're able to play football, play the game you love, right? I get it on Baker's end. I'm not blaming him at all. And right, I'm somebody who doesn't really like Baker at all. Um, but this isn't his fault per se, right? That's not my problem with the move on his end. But if you're the Rams, I gotta ask. I mean, what's going on here, right? I'm not sure I've ever seen a weirder, like a stranger season from a Super Bowl winner. It I mean, I guess some might have seen it coming, right? They weren't dominant last year. Let's not act like they tore through the NFC, right? So let's start with their playoff run last year, right? They almost lost to the Bucks, right? They weren't. It wasn't like a comfortable win. They were up a lot, and then a couple fumbles, a couple turnovers late. Next thing you know, the Bucks are like within a possession. Now it's tied, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. And then they just heave one up to Cooper Cup, and he kind of saves the day, right? Like that was a very losable game. Or how about against the Niners and Jimmy G? Well, they got outplayed for like 3 quarters, and then Jimmy G and the Niners defense completely imploded, and then Cooper Cup bailed them out again because that's kind of what happens. Probably should have lost that game though. And then how about the Bengals in the Super Bowl? The Bengals had that game. They were the better team for most of the football game, I would say. And then that last drive, you get, Cooper Cup end arounds and Cooper Cup sweeps and Cooper Cup down the middle, and then Aaron Donald obviously with the sack saves it. And I said this going into the season. I said, be careful with the whole like bring the band back together thing. Like be careful paying aging veterans like Aaron Donald, who I think is still fine. He's still been fine. And then going out and getting Bobby Wagner and Allen Robinson and I'm not saying I don't like Stafford, but I think we went a little bit crazy with his extension and he's the best. They went a little crazy there for a hot second, right? So the Rams are signing Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is one of the worst quarterbacks in the game over the last 3 seasons, right? There's 3 main seasons he's played, right? When he's pressured. Actually, this year he's worse than 32nd. He's not even technically a starting quarterback against the blitz. I think he's like 35th. How about over the last 3 years, he's actually bottom 5 in Jared Goff territory. He's down there with like Jared Goff and like rookie quarterbacks like Zach Wilson and Kenny Pickett, right? Like young second year quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, right? And I'm not saying it's easy to throw from a muddy pocket, right? But go look who's top 5 against the blitz. Actually, in the last like 5 games, Kenny Pickett's starting to figure it out. He's kind of up there in the last like 5 games, moving his way up. But it's a lot of like Mahomes and Burrow and Brady and Aaron, really guys who get it. They make the right checks at the line. They're slick in the pocket. They don't have to be mobile, right? I don't think any of those guys are hyper mobile. Yeah, Mahomes will move around. Burrow can move around. Aaron can move, but that's not why they're good. They're good within the pocket, especially like Brady. Slides here, slides left, slides right, steps up, little shoulder wiggle. Next thing you know, ball's out. Right, ball's out on time, accurate, in rhythm. The Rams are the 3rd worst in the league this year in sacks allowed. They've allowed 42 sacks. Only the Bears and the Colts are worse, who are hardly functioning organizations. The Bears were up like 19-9 at one point in the second half and lost to Aaron at home. At home. Which they can't block. And now you're going to put a new quarterback who, rumor has it, he might play tonight. A relatively immobile quarterback and a cocky and arrogant one at that. Into a disaster of a wide receiver room, I'll let that be known. He's throwing to almost nobody. Cooper Kupp's hurt. Van Jefferson's still working his way back from injury. Ben Skoranek. Someone named McCutcheon. Come on. Like, that sounds like an absolute disaster. Not to mention the noise and annoyance that he brings. I mean, if you can't admit that he's brought nothing but noise and arrogance and cockiness and just a distraction that you don't need, you're just not paying attention, right? I can't really have a conversation with you if you can deny that he hasn't been all those things. I mean, like, he calls out the medical staff in Cleveland, and he's now called out wide receivers and coaches in both Cleveland and Carolina. Right, and I said this whenever he was with Cleveland in the last year, and he was starting to get really, really pushy when he wasn't playing well. And I said, Baker, you got to relax because this is the best job you're ever going to have. Right, and if you can't make this work, how is a roster that's not as good as Cleveland, which at the time of him leaving Cleveland, not a lot of rosters were better than Cleveland. That was a top 5 roster. That was Well, they had just traded for Amari Cooper, but that was, you had OBJ, Jarvis Landry, two good tight ends, two good backs, a really good line. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, some decent linebackers, right? Like, that's a good roster. And I said, be careful messing this up because somebody with a worse roster, if you can't perform with that, with a really good running game, coach of the year, then why is a team with a worse roster going to bring you in and expect that to work? And I said, you got to be a guy in the room. You can't be going out and calling out medical staffs. Like, who does that? I've never seen that in my time. Tyrod Taylor got his lung punctured 20 minutes before an NFL football game, lost the starting job, has not started a game since. I've never heard him say a word about the medical staff. Not one. And not to mention Baker is not this good. Right? He's not good enough to overcome him being, I can't even say the word, right? Of him being an idiot. We'll just say that, right? I mean, P.J. Walker started him over at some point this year. P.J. Walker was in the XFL at one point. Or the AAF or something like that. One of these spring football leagues. Sam Darnold started over him. Does anybody really think Sam Darnold's a good starting quarterback? I'd go a step further. I think the Rams should look for a reboot, not to patchwork their quarterback room to win, 6 games this year? I said this in week 7. I'm like, you should have unloaded probably Jalen Ramsey and probably one more piece. And you probably could have gotten a first and a number 3 or 4 receiver. I mean, this morning, ask yourself, Jalen Ramsey, who just got crisped by DK Metcalf to win the game this past week, right? Him or a first-round pick and another receiver. I think at this stage, you're 3-9? I'd go for probably the first and the receiver, but it's too late now. Trading deadline's over. Right, so here they are with minimal picks, minimal capital, and now a Baker Mayfield issue. He's not an issue yet, but we all know he's going to be, right? We all know he's going to be death taxes and Baker Mayfield being an idiot. Right? That's kind of the thing. So to me, this makes no sense. So they can go win, 2 more games than they would have with John Wolford? I mean, who cares? Roll it with Wolford and Perkins or whoever. Right? Cheap, easy in the room. They're not going to agitate your entire locker room. I don't understand this. It's a good culture bringing in somebody that does not fit into cultures, is not good with cultures. I would want no parts of Baker Mayfield, especially as a team that actually, I'm not saying they have momentum. I was there 3-9, but I mean, they just won a championship. They're not that far removed from being a really good team. They still have stars. So Stafford's hurt. Cooper Kupp's hurt. Okay, it's a reboot year. Reboot. Get rid of pieces that aren't working. It's pretty easy to see Jalen Ramsey's not working anymore. Reboot. Get rid of them. Get a pick. Go get capital. Right? What is this? We're going to go pay Baker a $1.4 million over the next, 6 games just to be annoying and probably not very productive? That's terrible. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No. And the thing that I'm kind of looking out for and projecting is, look, you just took somebody who is drama-filled and you put them in the most drama-filled city and place around every big star.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
If you're looking, an analogy, you don't take an alcoholic to the bar.
Right.
You just took Baker Mayfield to Los Angeles.
Somebody that's a month off of, going to AA, you don't take them as your DD, right?
No.
They're not going bar hopping to DD you home, right? I get what you mean.
And I mean, I just see that being such a problem. There's going to be so many personality clashes. I mean, if you're clashing with people in Cleveland,
yeah. Well, it's not
wait till you roll up to LA.